Well, hello fishing friends, this is Matthew with Outfishing 13, bringing you another reel video, reel service that is. So I just got in the mail a donated reel that was taken apart and couldn't be put back together. Now I've seen this before and it's not too uncommon, and I've struggled with it myself when I first started doing reel services. Anyways, I want to thank Andrew for sending this to me. It's a pretty cool reel. I'm excited to get it put back together and start using it. So let's take a look at it. I'll tell you what it is, and we'll get it put back together and working. Okay, like any of my videos that you may have seen, you're just going to need a few things to service a reel with. You're going to need some reel oil, some reel lube. I have some here in a little tube that you can buy this at the tackle store. I've used two different types of grease to put my reels back together with. I use a lightweight Triflow Grease, that's a brand, and then I use some Lucas red grease, and this is a really sticky grease I put just on my gears. You might need a pair of pliers, like a needle nose, a small screwdriver, maybe a big flat screwdriver, and maybe even a Phillips screwdriver. Okay, some just basic tools. Have you a good workplace here? I use an old cloth here. Today, you might also need a reel schematic. Now this reel that I'm going to be working on is a Zebco 154. It's a closed face spinning reel. It's not your typical spin cast reel. It's like a spin cast, but it sits underneath your pole like a regular spinning reel. So, as you can see, I just want to show this close up here. This will help you put a reel back together. Everything is is shown here in the diagram on how it gets assembled. But sometimes you get into this stuff here, and this gets a little bit confusing, and sometimes the pictures just aren't perfect enough to really demonstrate how this is going to go back together. For example, this little part number 10 right here, 10 is called the anti-reverse pawl, but you really can't tell how it goes in there. You can sort of tell how it goes in there, but it's really difficult. Just looking at the schematics, it can help you out a lot. But one of the best things you can do when taking a reel apart is take photographs or video it as you go. And then you can go back and watch the video and be reminded, oh, that's how that goes back together. When we get to this anti-reverse here, I'm going to take some close-ups and really show you how to put this Zebco 154 back together, which is very similar to like the Zebco 33 of the same era. Okay, so here's my bag of parts. Here's the cap. It's a Zebco Omega 154, which was like one of the better ones, so really nice reel. This reel came with what was called a Darylin. It wasn't just plastic, it was Darylin, which was like a reinforced plastic. And then it actually has a metal foot here. It's a cast aluminum, which is pretty nice and durable. It's got a little inspection plate back here. I'm going to take all the parts out of here and name them as I take them out. So here we got the spinner cone. It's in good shape. You can see a little cracks in it here and there, but for the most part, it's in really good shape. Here's my spool. Here's my main crank. Set that there. Here's my handle. Nice shape. Here's a drag spring. Here's this piece here. This is the trigger. Okay, this is one of the bushings, the handle bushings for the axle, I mean. Here's the handle nut. Okay, here's a set of our drag washers in nice shape. Put them right there. Okay, here's my center shaft with the pinion. This comes with a really nice sturdy brass pinion, so that's a real nice bonus. Okay, we got 3 screws to put the case back, put it back together with. 1, 2, 3, and it looks like I'll need a Phillips screwdriver for that. Okay, here's that drag, the anti-reverse drag. There's my spool. That's my, and then here's the little washer. Here's another one of the bushings. My anti-reverse actuator. My anti-reverse spring. And then here's a little pin for the trigger. Right, it goes right there. So that's all the parts. Okay, let's start assembling it. It's all clean and good and ready to go. Oh, I just want to point out on this one, it does have one ball bearing, which is right here. So it has a nice ball bearing right there. Has a nice brass bushing right there for the nose. Very durable reel. It'll last for years and years and years as long as it's taken care of. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take and put some grease on this pinion gear, and I want to put the Lucas red grease. And it doesn't need a lot, because whatever spills off of this and comes off is not ever going to get back on. And I'm going to put some grease on this. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to put it, basically, if you took this apart, we're going to put it back in reverse order, which means we're going to start with what came out last. And the last thing that would come out on one of these would be this pinion gear right here. So we're going to put it in. Now we have to put together the anti-reverse. This is what's tricky for a lot of guys, particularly on these older reels. They are a little bit more complicated than, say, your more modern Chinese reels, but it's really basically pretty simple. What you got is you got this anti-reverse drag, and it goes on first. Okay, and usually it's long down here and rounded up here, and so that's the way it goes. And then you have this spring. Now look at this spring. It has a little pin right there. That pin is going to go in that slot. And so what you want to do is, it's a drag pin, and it creates a little bit of pressure on there, so it needs to go in there. But one of the things that's important is you have to stretch it and get it around this little shoulder right there. See that? Around the shoulder. That way it gives a little bit of drag, so that as it turns, it's not going to turn freely, and this is going to actuate it right there. It has a little bit of drag to pull the lever back when it's been actuated. Okay, and then this goes on here. I'm going to apply a little bit of Triflow grease on this. You don't want a lot of grease, but I think it's important to add a little bit. It's not going to hurt it at all, but it's going to help it so it just doesn't grind away. Okay, that's enough. Plus I want a little bit of grease on there to help this washer stick in place. So I put this little stainless steel washer and put it all together, and there's the little sandwich there. So take a look at that. Make sure that when you put it back together, it's just like this. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. Now I got this little actuator. Okay, this little actuator sits down in a little thing there. But before I put it in, I'm going to take this apart, and I'm going to show you how this actuator actually works. It needs to sit in here like so, and when it's spinning the regular way, it just clicks around like this. And when it goes backwards, what happens is this piece right there will make it so that it comes back in here. So it only has 5 places, so it actually has to spin pretty far, about 6 70 degrees. So it's not a really fast anti-reverse, but that's what it looks like when it's together. All right, let's put this back together again. Okay, put the anti-reverse drag plate on there, the anti-reverse drag pin, and then this little anti-reverse washer. Okay, what we need to do first is we need to put this down inside here. Right here, right there is a little hole, a little square hole. That little notch needs to go in there. This little notch right here is made to fit into this little, that notch right there. So when it's put together, that's what it's going to look like with that notch down in there. It's easier to take and put this down in there. I'm going to take a little pair of pliers so I can just hold on to it and place it right down in there so that it sits down there in that hole. Okay, now I have it sitting in that little hole. See that little hole right there and how it's sitting in there? Okay, there's a good shot of what it looks like sitting in down in there. Okay, the other thing you need to make sure you do is this little switch right here is the switch that turns the anti-reverse off and on. It's best if it's put in that position, which is the on position. It'll be easier to get the little anti-reverse drag little finger down into that hole. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is to hold your reel like this so that those parts don't fall off. You want to get this little finger right there underneath down in that groove down there, and you have to get that little tab right there down into that anti-reverse actuator, that little groove. So it's kind of a tricky step, but you can do it. So here we go. We're going to set it in just like this and get this started down in there first, and then kind of turn it a little bit and set it down in there, and there we go. Now it's pretty simple. So now that it's there, we can go ahead and put in these bushings. Now I've super tuned a bunch of 33s. You can't super tune this. It's not. There's no bearing that can actually fit in this. It's a very proprietary bushing, and it only goes. You can only use these. You can't replace these with ball bearings. I wish you could, but you can't. I'm going to put some lightweight grease in these. Okay. It has a slot right here and two little tabs right there. This part goes in first, and those little tabs fit in a little slot inside here. Whoops, let's make sure that it doesn't come apart. Hold on it with your thumb, and then just put these in here so those little tabs line up basically at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So push that in there, and then take your handle and fit your handle in there, and then take and push it in there the rest of the way. And that's it. It only goes in there, and then it butts up against a little shoulder right there. That's as far as it'll go. And then do the other side. There we go, and use your handle again to seat it in there. There we go, and that's it. So now it's put back together, and we're done with the back. So what we can do now is we can start putting the rest of the back on. Let's do that first, and then we'll put the front of it together. Okay, we have this little trigger that we need to put on. So let's put that in there, like so. And then we'll put this little pin in there. And it just sits in there. It doesn't have to be pressed in there. It just sits in there, and then it's going to sit in the frame, which is going to hold it apart. So now we can test it. That works good. And while I got it in at this point, I'm going to put my handle in. I'm going to test my anti-reverse. The anti-reverse works great. You can see how far that anti-reverse has to go. That's just the way that some of these were made. If I turn the anti-reverse off, it will spin backwards. Okay, I'm just going to take that handle out. All right, now we're ready to put on this part right here, the back cover, and the 3 little screws. So let's just take and put that on there and press it in there. That looks good. Trigger works good. And we just need to come in here. There's 3 holes that we have to put these screws in. One right here, one right here, and then one right here. I would recommend getting these, don't tighten them one at a time. Get them down to where it gets snug, and then move on to the next one, and then we'll do like a half a turn on each one until it's all the way snug. That way we're not getting it too tight on any one. Okay, so we'll tighten this one. We'll tighten this one. Tighten this one. We'll go back around. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. Okay, that's done. Let's put the handle on. I'm going to put the handle on this side. I like to reel with my left hand. That's just the way that I grew up. And I like to cast with this hand and reel with that one. So that's the way I'm going to do it. So then we put this on. And like most spinning reels, this has a neat feature where to store it, you can loosen it up and then fold it up like that to put it in a rod case or a reel case. So that's a pretty neat little feature. Okay, that feels really good. And that feels really good too. All right, now we're ready to put back together the spool and the drag system. There's this little drag right here, and this little notch right there has to fit in that little flat slot. And that's the first thing that goes in there. And we really don't need a bunch of grease on this. Seems to be sitting up really far. Oh, I see what's going on. We need to put that little one goes in that hole, and that big slot goes in this one right here. There we go, just like that. Some of them are actually, they're made so it doesn't matter which direction they go on, but this one does. And you want to take this and move it all the way down to the lowest setting. So there I have it set down to the very lowest setting on that one. That way it makes it easy for the spool to go on. And then the first thing that you need to put on is a stainless steel drag washer. This one has 3 grooves, and you just got to put it on. And then we're going to use some of this lightweight grease to grease this. And then we need to put on one of these drag washers. This one's kind of picked up some hair and stuff, so we'll clean it off. These are good drag washers, these plastic ones. Oh, I see some hair in there. I want to make sure that that's out. I don't know if that was from my brush or something else. Okay, we'll put that on there, then we'll add a little bit of grease. Doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. And now we're ready to put the spool on. And before I put the spool on, I'm going to put some grease on here. Okay. Alright, there we go. Okay, and then the next thing we want to put on is another drag washer. And it's already got quite a bit of grease on there. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on here. And then a drag washer. It's nice and clean. And then the stainless drag washer. So it's got plenty of grease on there. Okay, and then we can put our retaining clip. And it can go on, looks like, just one way. I'm going to put it on this way right here. The way those slots go, I guess it could go many different ways. There's the slot goes all the way around. Okay. There we go, and it's on. And the drag works good. Okay. Then we're ready to put this on. Now, this doesn't need a lot of grease in here. I can see that there's a lot of grease in here from its previous service, which is good, but it doesn't need a lot of grease on here. I'll clean this off. Good. And we're going to put some grease in here and some grease right on that little black wheel right there. That little black wheel is what rides around the circumference of this. Every time you spin that around, it's spinning around there, so you want to have it well lubricated. And we'll put some lubrication on here and right on the top. Okay, spin our spinner cone on and tighten it down. Okay. Oh, look at that. It's coming apart some. Look at that. Well, you know what I'm going to do? Now that I got it back together, I can still salvage this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that in there with some super glue. But I'm going to have to clean it up with soap and water, and then I'm going to get it put back together in there, because I think that it can still be salvaged, because otherwise I'm going to have to fabricate something. I was afraid of that, but I should be able to salvage that and super glue that in there, or use some rubber cement. But basically it's all back together, but the hole that goes down, and so the wording's up. But it's going to work. I'm not going to spin it right now because those pieces will come apart in there. But there it is. There's the Omega 154 all back together and serviced. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to spool this up with some line and take it fishing as soon as I get that nose cone all repaired. But give me a big thumbs up and subscribe by pushing on the button over there. Comment below and let me know if you have any questions or comments. And share my videos. I have over 600 subscribers now. I'm aiming to get 1,000 as soon as possible. I spent a lot of time on these. I'm not making any money on them, but it'd be nice to make a little bit of money. So I got to get to 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you give me a big thumbs up, push the subscribe button, and comment below. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.